The last time you had a proper bowel movement, you cannot even remember. But what you do remember, with uncomfortable clarity, is the bloated stomach that greets you every single evening, the heavy, leaden feeling that settles in after every meal, and the embarrassing gas you would never dream of discussing out loud. You have learned to live around these symptoms. You have accepted them as background noise, as the price of getting older, as something everybody probably deals with but nobody talks about. Here is the uncomfortable truth. All of these symptoms are not separate, unrelated inconveniences. They are part of the same process, a slow, grinding process that is poisoning your body right now, today, while you read this. And the most disturbing part is not that it is happening. The most disturbing part is that you have normalized it completely. My name is Dr.Deepins, and I want to tell you something that took me years to fully understand. People live for years, sometimes for decades, with a gut that works at half its natural capacity, and they think it is completely normal. They have forgotten what normal actually feels like. They have lost the reference point. Well, I go every 2 or 3 days, they say, so everything must be fine. No, it is not fine. And deep down, if you are honest with yourself, you already know that. The 72-hour problem nobody wants to think about. Let us start with a number that should make you stop and think. The large intestine of an adult human being is approximately 1.5 meters long. It is a muscular, dynamic tube that is designed, by millions of years of evolution, to move its contents through efficiently and expel them within a predictable time frame. When it is working properly, this process takes somewhere between 18 and 36 hours from the moment food enters your mouth to the moment waste leaves your body. But when you go to the bathroom only once every 3 days, what does that actually mean? It means the contents of your large intestine are remaining inside you for 72 full hours. 3 complete days. 72 hours during which the bacteria inside your gut are not simply sitting still and waiting. They are working. They are metabolizing. They are producing. And what do they produce? During those 72 hours, bacteria process leftover food material and generate a cocktail of chemical compounds: indole, scatol, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia. These are not neutral byproducts. These are genuinely toxic substances. And here's the part that most people never hear. These substances do not simply sit inside your colon waiting to be expelled. They are absorbed, slowly, continuously, through the intestinal wall and directly into your bloodstream. You are literally poisoning yourself from the inside. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, day after day, in a way that accumulates over months and years into something your body struggles to compensate for. And the only symptoms you notice? A vague heaviness after meals, a fatigue that you attribute to age, a foggy mental clarity in the afternoons. You blame stress. You blame a busy lifestyle. You blame the fact that you are not as young as you used to be. But the real cause is sitting inside your colon, slowly releasing its toxic cargo into your blood. Your gut has its own brain, and you have been ignoring it. The large intestine is not simply a passive tube for waste removal. It is one of the most sophisticated organs in the human body, a muscular structure with its own independent nervous system, its own decision-making capacity, and its own complex relationship with the rest of your biology. Inside the walls of your intestines are approximately 500 million nerve cells. To put that in perspective, that is more nerve cells than exist in your entire spinal cord. This network of neurons is called the enteric nervous system, and it controls the wave-like muscular contractions known as peristalsis, the rhythmic squeezing motion that pushes intestinal contents forward, completely independently of the brain in your skull. Your gut literally decides on its own when to contract, how strongly to contract, and in what direction to move its contents. It communicates with your brain, certainly, but it does not need permission. It is autonomous. It is intelligent in its own biological way. But here is the critical vulnerability in that system. This autonomous network is extraordinarily sensitive to 3 specific factors: what you eat, how much water is present inside the intestine, and when you eat. Disrupt even one of these factors and peristalsis begins to slow. Disrupt all 3 simultaneously, which millions of people do every single day without realizing it, and your gut essentially shuts down. When peristalsis slows, the contents of your large intestine begin to lose water. Stool becomes progressively drier, denser, harder. The intestinal walls stretch slightly to accommodate the increasing volume, but the nerve endings inside those walls adapt to the pressure over time. They stop firing as urgently, and suddenly, you are no longer going to the bathroom when your body tells you to go. You are going when you consciously decide to go, usually in the morning, out of pure habit, sitting there with your phone, scrolling through messages while your body waits. But habit is not a reflex, and your gut needs a reflex. The scale of the problem: every second person over the age of 50 reports the sensation of incomplete emptying after a bowel movement. That nagging feeling that the job is not quite done, that there is still something left behind. This is not a subjective impression or a matter of anxiety. It is a clinical, measurable reality. The rectosigmoid region, the final 30 centimeters of the large intestine before the rectum, never fully empties in these individuals. There is always a residue left behind after each visit to the bathroom. That residue continues to lose water. It hardens further. It releases more toxic byproducts. And this process repeats, day after day, compounding the problem with every incomplete emptying until the situation becomes chronic, entrenched, and seemingly impossible to shift. The good news, and there genuinely is good news, is that this can be reversed, not with enemas, which can actually damage the natural reflexes your gut depends on, not with laxatives, which create dependency and weaken the intestinal muscles over time, not with powders from advertisements or trendy detox products in expensive packaging that promise dramatic results and deliver almost nothing. The answer is far simpler, far more elegant, and far more sustainable than any of those approaches. But it requires one thing from you first: understanding how your body actually works when you are asleep. There is a piece of knowledge that most people, including many medical professionals who focus on other areas of medicine, have never been told. And once you understand it, it changes everything about how you think about your digestive health. It is this: night is not a time of rest for your gut. Night is when your gut works the hardest. During the day, your body is governed by the sympathetic nervous system. This is the system responsible for alertness, for stress responses, for the famous fight or flight reaction that kept your ancestors alive in dangerous environments. When the sympathetic system is dominant, your gut operates in the background, doing its basic maintenance functions while your brain and muscles take priority. Blood is directed to your limbs. Digestion is deprioritized. The intestines do what they can, but they are working at reduced capacity. But when you fall asleep, when the demands of the external world finally stop pressing on you, control shifts. The sympathetic system quiets. The parasympathetic nervous system takes over. This is the system of recovery, of repair, of deep biological restoration. And one of its most important jobs is to activate your digestive system for a full night of intensive cleansing work. The vagus nerve, your gut's nightly conductor. The mechanism behind this is the vagus nerve, one of the longest and most important nerves in the human body, running from the brainstem all the way down through the chest and abdomen, with branches reaching into virtually every major organ. At night, as parasympathetic activity rises, the vagus nerve directly stimulates the muscular wall of the intestine. Peristalsis increases. The gut begins moving its contents in an organized, deliberate, downward progression, steadily, unhurriedly, working through the entire length of the large intestine over the course of your sleep. This is why a healthy person, someone whose nighttime digestive cycle is functioning correctly, feels a natural, clear urge to go to the bathroom within the first 30 to 40 minutes of waking up in the morning. It is not random. It is not luck. It is the direct result of a gut that has been working steadily all night, pushing its contents toward the exit, preparing for the morning's mass peristalsis. The powerful, coordinated contraction that typically happens once or twice a day and represents the gut's strongest self-cleaning mechanism. Mass peristalsis is triggered by a combination of factors: the vertical shift from lying down to standing, the increased movement of your body, and the gastrocolic reflex, the wave of intestinal activity that follows eating or drinking in the morning. When all of these factors align, the result is a clear, complete, effortless bowel movement that leaves you feeling genuinely empty and comfortable for the rest of the day. But if you miss that window, if the morning reflex is weak or absent because your nighttime cycle was disrupted, you may not get another opportunity that day. The next wave of mass peristalsis may not come. The contents move on. They harden a little more. And by the following morning, the cycle of incomplete emptying continues. Why the nighttime cycle breaks down. Research on bowel movement patterns consistently shows that approximately 70% of people with irregular or infrequent bowel movements have no structural disease, no pathological damage, no underlying medical condition that explains their symptoms. Their intestines are anatomically normal. Their gut biology is fundamentally intact. The problem is functional, not structural. Specifically, their nighttime cleansing cycle has been disrupted, often by habits that feel completely ordinary and harmless. They eat late in the evening. They go to bed with a full or partly full stomach. They fall asleep late, often after extended screen time, in a state of mild mental stimulation that prevents the parasympathetic system from fully activating. They wake up stressed by an alarm, jolted from sleep in a way that immediately re-engages the sympathetic nervous system before the gut has completed its overnight work. The vagus nerve never gets the quiet, uninterrupted window it needs to do its job. The gut does not empty overnight. The morning urge either never comes or is so faint that it is easily ignored or overridden. And the day begins, as it so often does, with that familiar heaviness, that subtle bloating, that uncomfortable fullness that you have learned to carry around as though it were simply part of being you. But your body did not betray you. Your gut did not fail. You simply did not give it the night it needs. The 5 factors that shut down your nighttime cycle. Let us now be specific about exactly what disrupts the nighttime cleansing cycle, because vague advice is not useful. Understanding the precise mechanisms gives you the power to change them. The first factor is the timing of your last meal. If you eat 1 to 1.5 hours before sleep, as many people routinely do, your stomach begins the process of active digestion. Blood flow increases to the upper digestive tract. The small intestine receives a new portion of partially processed food, and the large intestine receives an automatic biological signal that says, in effect, wait, new material is coming. Do not move what is already here. So instead of the large intestine spending those nighttime hours moving and clearing its contents, it pauses for 4 to 6 hours, waiting for the signal to proceed. You sleep, but your colon is effectively on hold, waiting for your late dinner to move through the system before it can begin its real overnight work. By the time it gets started, you are waking up. The second factor is hydration, specifically, water consumed in the period before sleep. Your colon constantly absorbs water from the stool passing through it. This is a normal and necessary process. But if your body is in a state of mild dehydration when you go to bed, which many people are, especially if they have not been drinking water regularly throughout the day, the colon extracts as much water as possible from the stool, making it increasingly dry, dense, and difficult to move. A single glass of warm water consumed 30 to 40 minutes before sleep softens the intestinal contents significantly and creates the conditions that allow peristalsis to work effectively through the night. The third factor is body position during sleep, and this is perhaps the most overlooked piece of information in the entire field of digestive health. Your colon is shaped roughly like an inverted U. The ascending colon rises on the right side of your body. The transverse colon crosses horizontally. And the descending colon, where the final movement of stool toward the rectum occurs, runs down the left side. When you sleep on your left side, gravity actively assists the downward movement of stool through that descending colon. When you sleep on your right side or on your back, gravity works against that movement, slowing transit and contributing to the incomplete emptying that so many people experience every morning. The fourth factor is the type of dietary fiber you consume. Most people, when they think of fiber for digestive health, think of bran, whole grains, and rough, scratchy foods. This is insoluble fiber, and while it adds bulk to stool, it does not solve the deeper problem of slow transit and poor motility. The real driver of healthy gut function is soluble fiber, pectin, inulin, beta-glucan, found in oats, apples, pears, flax seeds, legumes, and certain vegetables. These forms of fiber dissolve in water and form a gel-like substance that softens stool, lubricates its passage through the colon, and, critically, feeds the beneficial bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for the cells lining your colon. Without adequate butyrate production, those cells weaken motility declines, and the whole system becomes progressively less effective. The fifth factor is chronic stress, and it is perhaps the most insidious because it affects everything else. When you are under sustained psychological stress, your sympathetic nervous system remains partially active even while you sleep. Stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, continue circulating at elevated levels. These hormones directly suppress vagus nerve activity and block the parasympathetic takeover that is supposed to happen during sleep. The result is a form of constipation called spastic constipation. The gut receives conflicting signals to both move and stop simultaneously, producing irregular, cramping contractions that move little and empty nothing completely. People in chronic stress often describe their gut as unpredictable, sometimes sluggish, sometimes urgently active, but almost never reliably functional. Everything we have discussed so far leads to one practical question. What do you actually do? Not in a theoretical sense, not as a distant aspiration. What do you do tonight, and tomorrow morning, and the day after that, to begin restoring the nighttime cleansing cycle your gut was designed to rely on? The answer is a protocol, a specific, sequential set of behaviors that work together to create the conditions your parasympathetic nervous system and your vagus nerve need to do their jobs. None of these steps is difficult. None requires specialized equipment, expensive supplements, or significant disruption to your existing life. But all of them matter, and consistency matters more than perfection. The evening protocol, the foundation of everything, is the timing of your last meal. You need to finish eating at least 3 hours before you plan to sleep. Not 2 hours, not 90 minutes, 3 full hours. This window gives your stomach time to complete its initial processing and signals to your large intestine that no more material is coming, that it is safe to begin the overnight clearing process. If your bedtime is 11 p.m., your last meal should be no later than 8 p.m. If this feels impossible given your current schedule, start by moving your last meal 15 minutes earlier each week. Gradual adjustment is far more sustainable than dramatic overnight change. Approximately 30 to 40 minutes before you intend to sleep, drink 1 glass of warm water, not cold water, which can trigger a stress-like response in the digestive system. Warm water, the temperature of a comfortable bath, soothes the intestinal wall and softens the stool contents, preparing them to move smoothly through the night. This single habit, practiced consistently, makes a measurable difference in morning bowel regularity within 2 to 3 weeks for most people. Begin reducing screen exposure at least 1 hour before sleep. This is not a vague wellness recommendation. It is a direct physiological intervention. The blue spectrum light emitted by phones, tablets, and computer screens suppresses melatonin production and keeps the sympathetic nervous system in a mild state of activation. When you fall asleep with your sympathetic system still engaged, which is what happens when you scroll social media or watch stimulating content right up until you close your eyes, your parasympathetic system cannot fully take over. The vagus nerve remains partially inhibited. Your gut receives reduced stimulation. The nighttime cycle is compromised before it even begins. Replace screen time with activities that actively engage the parasympathetic system. A warm shower or bath before bed is one of the most effective options. The rise and subsequent fall of body temperature that follows a warm shower mimics the natural temperature drop associated with sleep onset and powerfully activates parasympathetic tone. Your heart rate slows, your muscles relax, your vagus nerve becomes more active, and your gut begins preparing for its nightly work. Breath work is another evidence-based tool for parasympathetic activation. The specific pattern that has the strongest effect on vagus nerve tone is an extended exhale. Try inhaling through your nose for 4 seconds, holding briefly, then exhaling slowly through your mouth for 7 seconds. The prolonged exhale directly stimulates the vagus nerve through its connection to the diaphragm and respiratory system. Practicing this for 5 to 10 minutes as you settle into bed is not a relaxation technique in the vague, optional sense. It is a direct biological intervention that measurably shifts your nervous system toward the parasympathetic state your gut needs. Finally, once you are in bed, make a conscious effort to settle on your left side. You do not need to stay there rigidly all night. Your body will move naturally during sleep. But starting on your left side means that during the lighter sleep phases when you are more likely to remain in your chosen position, Gravity is working with your descending colon rather than against it. Over weeks and months, this positional habit compounds into meaningfully better transit and more complete emptying. The morning protocol, what you do in the first 20 minutes after waking, is almost as important as everything you did the night before. The morning mass peristalsis reflex is powerful, but it is also fragile. It can be triggered and supported, or it can be suppressed and lost. The moment you wake up, drink a glass of water. Room temperature or slightly warm is ideal. This does two things simultaneously. It rehydrates the intestinal contents that have been slowly losing water through the night, and it triggers the gastrocolic reflex, the wave of intestinal motility that follows the introduction of any substance into an empty stomach. This reflex is strongest in the morning because the stomach has been empty for 8 or more hours and the colon has been working through the night. After drinking your morning water, wait. Do not rush. Do not immediately check your phone, which can engage the stress response and suppress the very reflex you are waiting for. Spend 15 to 20 minutes in quiet, relaxed activity, gentle stretching, slow walking around your home, or simply sitting comfortably with a cup of warm tea or coffee. Movement of any kind, even very gentle movement, triggers the postural reflex that combines with the gastrocolic reflex to produce mass peristalsis. The urge to go, when it comes, will feel different from a forced or habitual trip to the bathroom. It will feel natural, clear, and complete. When the urge arrives, respond to it. Do not override it because you are busy, because you want to finish a task first, because the timing feels inconvenient. The mass peristalsis reflex is not infinitely patient. If you ignore it, it will pass. The colon will reabsorb the water from the waiting stool. The contents will harden, and the opportunity will be gone until the next morning. If the cycle has been properly established, or simply gone until you somehow manage to create the right conditions again. The role of daily movement beyond the morning and evening protocols, there is one more factor that has a surprisingly large impact on transit time: walking. Not intense exercise, not a gym session. Simply walking for 20 minutes each day has been shown in clinical studies to reduce intestinal transit time, the time it takes for material to travel through your entire digestive system, by up to 14 hours. Think about what that means in practical terms. If your current transit time is 72 hours, 3 days, adding a 20-minute walk to your daily routine could bring that down to under 60 hours. Consistent walking over several weeks can shift transit time into the healthy range of 24 to 36 hours. This happens because walking activates the same mechanical and neurological pathways that stimulate peristalsis. The rhythmic movement of your body, the engagement of your core muscles, the increased blood flow to your abdominal organs. All of these contribute to more active intestinal motility throughout the day. You do not need to walk intensely. You do not need to break into a sweat. A relaxed, comfortable pace is sufficient. The key is consistency. 10 minutes after breakfast and 10 minutes after dinner is often easier to maintain than a single 20-minute block, and the post-meal timing takes advantage of the gastrocolic reflex that naturally follows eating. What absolutely does not work, and why? Because this is a topic surrounded by an enormous amount of commercial noise and well-intentioned but misguided advice. It is worth being direct about the interventions that do not work and, in some cases, actively make the situation worse. Enemas, used regularly, damage the very reflexes your gut depends on. The rectal stretch receptors, the nerve endings that generate the urge to go, become dependent on external stimulation and progressively less sensitive to the internal signals that should trigger the reflex naturally. People who use enemas regularly often find that they eventually cannot go at all without one. This is not a solution. It is a substitution of one problem for a worse one. Commercial laxatives, used chronically, create a similar dependency. Stimulant laxatives in particular, senna, bisacodyl, and similar compounds, work by artificially forcing the colon to contract. Used occasionally for genuine medical necessity, they are appropriate and safe. Used routinely to compensate for a chronically slow gut, they weaken the intestinal muscles over time, reduce the enteric nervous system's sensitivity, and can cause what clinicians call cathartic colon, a condition in which the colon becomes progressively less capable of functioning without chemical stimulation. Oil cleanses, popular in certain wellness circles, are not supported by any credible physiological evidence and carry real risks of lipoid pneumonia if aspirated, as well as disruption to the mucosal lining of the intestine. Fasting for the purpose of cleansing is similarly counterproductive. The colon needs material passing through it to maintain its muscular tone, its mucosal integrity, and its microbial balance. Fasting deprives it of all three simultaneously. Detox products. The category is almost impossibly broad, covering everything from herbal teas to activated charcoal to expensive probiotic blends. Overwhelmingly lack evidence for the specific claims made about them. Some probiotics have genuine, evidence-supported benefits for specific conditions, but a gut that is chronically constipated because of poor meal timing, inadequate hydration, wrong sleeping position, insufficient soluble fiber, and chronic stress will not be fixed by a supplement. The supplement addresses nothing about the underlying disruption. Your body is already designed to heal. Everything described in this protocol works because it is aligned with the biology your body already has. You are not adding anything artificial. You are not forcing any process that your body would not naturally perform. You are simply creating the conditions, the timing, the hydration, the sleep environment, the positional support, the nervous system state that your gut has always required but has been denied. Your enteric nervous system is not broken. Your vagus nerve is not damaged. Your colon has not forgotten how to move. The mechanism is intact. It has simply been operating without the conditions it needs to function properly, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. The 5 pillars are simple enough to state in a single sentence. Eat earlier in the evening. Drink warm water before bed and immediately upon waking. Reduce screen time and stress in the hours before sleep. Shift to sleeping on your left side and add soluble fiber and 20 minutes of walking to your daily routine. That is the entire protocol. There is no secret ingredient. There is no expensive intervention. There is no dramatic detox. There is only biology working exactly the way it was designed to work when you finally stop working against it. Thousands of people invest enormous amounts of money and anxiety searching for a magic solution to a problem that has a straightforward, free answer. The answer is not in a bottle. It is in your habits. It is in your timing. It is in the way you choose to spend the hours between your last meal and your first morning moment. Your gut is not your enemy. It is one of the most disciplined, resilient, and self-sufficient systems in your entire body. Give it the right environment. Give it the night it actually needs, and it will do the rest without any assistance from you at all. And sometimes a single piece of clearly explained information, received at the right moment, can change not just someone's day, but their health, their energy, their relationship with their own body, and ultimately, the quality of the years they have ahead of them. This is that piece of information. What you do with it is up to you.